Hello, friends, and welcome back to the International Fortepiano Salon Online. My name is Iheng Yang, and I'm speaking to you live from New York City. I am one of the hosts of the International Fortepiano Salon, along with Patricia Garcia Gil and Maria Rose, and we are so happy to have you. Today we have a very exciting salon with a special guest artist, Jean-Bernard Cerin, and the title of our salon today is Three Black Voices in Forte Piano History. We're celebrating Black History Month at the salon in conjunction with our sponsor, Catskill Mountain Foundation, and we couldn't be more excited to welcome our guest today and hear the music that he's going to share. Before that, as usual, I want to ask all of you watching online to write in your comment boxes on YouTube and Facebook just to say hello and say where you're viewing from. We have friends and musicians and colleagues from all over the world who have connected through the salon. It's hard to believe, but today is our 23rd salon. And the International Fortepiano Salon was created by me and Maria Rose in 2020 during the COVID pandemic, in that time of isolation, in order to foster connection and community and celebration of all the individual and wonderful artists and musicians working on early pianos around the world. And now we are in our fourth season already. And I just wanted to remember that and celebrate our community, especially now, to continue to connect, to encourage one another in a time of much turmoil and grief. Now in 2025, we can renew our sense of purpose, our sense of history and conversation. And we are so excited to continue highlighting amazing artistic voices and to reaffirm what it means to be humans and artists and to continue to be creative as we go through what is happening in these days in 2025. So thank you again for joining us. My name's Yiheng Yang, your host. Please say hello in the chat box. And now it's my great pleasure to bring on to the screen my co-host, Patricia Garcia Hill, who's going to be telling us about the salon and introducing our wonderful guest artist. Hello, Patricia.
Hello, Yehan. Thank you so much for those beautiful and very important words to hear right now. Nowadays, very encouraging to keep working in a way we believe that is fair, and revisiting all the history that needs to be revisited, especially with our edition of these salons that we've called Coming to the Table, right? So bringing these topics now more than ever to the table, I think it's important. And yes, in good company of all these friends, that this community that you started building up and that keeps growing. So thank you so much.
It's so great to have you. Oh, I wanted to say before you continue that we have another wonderful salon on March 9th celebrating Women's History Month, and we're pleased to welcome Karine Cuellar Rondon, who's a wonderful violinist in Seattle, and also, I believe, the director of Early Music America, or the new board director of the board. Is that correct, Patricia?
Yes, that is
So
right.
we'll remind you of that later at as we make announcements throughout today's episode. But please mark March 9th on your calendar as we celebrate Women's History Month next month in March.
And
We'll have a
Karin,
salon for that.
yes,
Yes.
and Karin will be speaking and performing works by women composers from Latin America.
Mhm.
So it's going to be very exciting. But today we have Bernard Cerin here with us. He is a multifaceted artist and scholar who produces and performs in projects ranging from film, recital, oratorio, opera, and folk music. He is the artistic director of the Lisette Project, a performance and research collective focusing on the history of classical music in Haiti. He also directs the voice program at Cornell University in Ithaca, New York. He performs extensively as a baritone with leading early music ensembles across the United States, but song recitals also sit at the heart of his performance activities. His repertoire is exceptionally vast, ranging from standard romantic and early 20th Western classical music literature to collaborations with living composers and explorations outside of the Western canon. As part of our new music and ideas series coming to the table and in celebration of Black History Month, we are lucky to have Jean Bernard join the Fortepiano Salon in a conversation about three trailblazing musicians from the 18th, 19th, and 20th centuries: Ignatius Sancho, Juste Chanlatte, and Carmen Brouard. Please help me welcome in three Black voices in fortepiano history and Jean Bernard Cerin.
Hello, Patricia, and thank you for having me. Hello to all of our friends and colleagues who are watching online. It's truly an honor to be here and to share stories about three individuals who I find really inspiring in Black music history, but with the forte piano angle today. I'm particularly grateful to the Fortepiano Salon for allowing me to push the timeline forward into the 20th century, past the fortepiano, because I think that's so important in Black history, even when we are in an early music context, because so many Black voices really come into their own, even though they might exist in the 18th century, in the 19th century, as we will discuss. But, particularly in the case of Haiti, while it does exist robustly early, it becomes truly Haitian in the 20th century. So it's nice to sort of make that larger arc, as we'll do today. So we begin our talk with Ignatius Sancho, don't we? Charles Ignatius Sancho, born in 1729, on a slave ship headed to Colombia. We know very little about Sancho's early life, but as we understand it, he was orphaned as a baby, and as a baby born into slavery, en route from West Africa to South America. And at the age of 2, he was brought to London, where he lives with a family that had three women, unmarried women. And it's your classic tale of slavery, where he was not treated well, but he was fortunate in that in his teenage years he came across the Duke of Montague. The Duke of Montague, that Duke of Montague at the time, was known for being a little radical in his thinking, and met Sancho, the young Sancho, and actually gave the young man books because the young man wanted to read. And through his interactions with the Duke of Montague, he taught himself to read. Later on in his teenage years, he actually escaped the house where he was living and went and lived with the Montagues, working for them first as a valet and then as a butler. Long story short, Charles Ignatius Sancho remakes his life, having started from slavery into service as an enslaved person in England, and then as a free person in the house of the Montagues. He comes into some money and opens a grocery store, a grocery business that was quite successful. But what's interesting about Ignatius Sancho is that in his interactions with the upper class, which he did quite a bit, in his life in service, he became enamored both of music and of dance, and wrote music. In fact, the bulk of he has just a few things that he published. Most of them are dances. He has 2 anthologies of country dances, and these would be partner dances in the contra dance style. And these they would be both music and sometimes with directions about how people would dance the various styles. So in recent years, people have been really interested in Ignatius Sancho, both musicians and dancers, because of his output. The 3 songs we're going to share with you today are 3 of 6 songs that Ignatius published during his life, and we'll talk about each in turn. One more interesting tidbit about Ignatius Sancho is that up until recently, the narrative was that he was the first Black man or known Black man to vote in a British election, because by the end of his life, he was the owner of property and male property owners in England could vote. And therefore, Ignatius Sancho, there are records showing that he voted, except that recently it was found that there was another Black man about 40 years early, or 25 years, 25 years earlier, named John London, a pub owner in London who actually is now known to have been the first Black person to cast a vote in England. So Sancho no longer holds that title. But before we go into the songs for today, Patricia and I know each other because we both are working here at Cornell University and are part of the wonderful Center for Early Keyboards. And she's going to talk to us a little bit about the instrument that she's playing in this video.
Yeah, no, thank you for this enlightening introduction to the composer and these fun facts that are quite important and relevant in history, and say a lot of it. It also reminded me to another composer that I wish we will talk about in other program, Francis Johnson, who also wrote a lot for dancing. So yeah, no, this is so interesting. Thank you. So yes, just to mention something about the collection. The collection is one of the most special collections in the whole of the US, really. Something that Malcolm Bilson, one of the pioneers in the revival of the fortepiano, collected and then donated to the university. So now it is part of the university, but we're still very much in debt to Malcolm for his wonderful gift, not only for the pianos, but also for his love and passion for historical performance on historical pianos. So the instrument that we've chosen, it was kind of a bold choice, actually, because apparently Sancho would have had access to a square piano, an English square piano, which of course it was the most common instrument in England, right, at the time, because of a reduced cost and you know the possibility of really having it in a small place as well. So this the instrument we've chosen is quite different from the square piano. It's a Silbermann piano. It's a replica after a Silbermann piano of 1749, which thinking of dates would be quite appropriate, actually. And this is partly the reason why we chose it. But the other reason is that this music, and in particularly the keyboard part, it's written as a basso continuo line. And the Silbermann piano has this wonderful and really like fun possibility of making the sound of a harpsichord by activating these two hand levers that move a little piece of bone, and that is placed between the strings and hammers. And so when the hammers hit that little piece of bone in between the strings, it creates this metallic sound, kind of, that you will see in the second song, I believe is the second.
It's the third song, actually.
Okay, I'm sorry. So in the last one.
In the last one.
That we are performing. So that was partly the reason why we wanted to use this instrument. Also, as I said, because chronologically it would be the most appropriate one. So the range of this instrument is quite small as well, same as the earlier square pianos in England. That was the other reason. And just because of the many colors that the instrument offer. Also, I need to confess, we don't have any square piano from the...
Well, we have one, but it's not in working condition.
Exactly. One day we'll have one. But in any case, I'm very happy about this choice because it really represents the way that at the time of Sancho, many pieces were written for any keyboard that you would have available. And specifically, it could be fine to use a harpsichord or a piano. So this particular piano, the Silbermann piano, represents that kind of like shift in the taste of people in general in Europe, like trying to forget about the harpsichord, but not just yet. and then the fortepiano becoming the actual instrument. So it is true in England that happened a little bit earlier than in other parts. But yes, so I think we need to probably hear the music.
Yeah, but before we do, Sarah, can you give us that next slide? I didn't mention that Ignatius Sancho was a great letter writer. And this is a letter to a Mr. J.W.E., that I think sums up the sentiment in the first song we're going to hear. I dare say you will ever remember that the truest worth is that of the mind, the blessed rectitude of the heart, the conscience unsullied with guilt, the undaunted noble eye enriched with innocence and shining with social glee, peace dancing in the heart and health smiling in the face. May these be ever thy companions, and for riches you will ever be more than vulgarly rich, while you thankfully enjoy and gratefully assist the wants, as far as you are able, of your fellow creatures. Such a beautiful quote. Sarah, you can move on to that next slide. And this is the Anacreon Ode number 23 from this collection of new songs and text by Francis Fox by Ignatius Sancho.
If the treasured gold could give man a longer life to live, I'd employ my utmost care still to keep and still to spare. And when death approached would say, take thy fee and go away. Take thy fee, take thy fee, take thy fee and go away. But its riches cannot save mortals from the gloomy grave. Why should I myself deceive, vainly sigh and vainly grieve? Death will surely be my lot, whether I am rich or not, whether I am rich or not. Give me freely while I live, generous wine a plenty give. Soothing joys my life to cheer, beauty kind and friends sincere. Happy could I ever find friends sincere and beauty kind, friends sincere, friends sincere, friends sincere and beauty kind.
So delightful. My favorite, every time I sing Sancho songs, the songs are beautiful, they're simple, they are direct, they feel nice to sing in the throat. They're nice to teach to students if you're looking for music, great introductory pieces from the 18th century, that are both good for a beginner and for a professional, because I love to do them, in concert, even as a 39-year-old student. Before we go to the next song, I did want to say just a little more about the fact that Sancho was a great letter writer and was in conversation with the abolitionists of his time. And in reading his letters, we encounter an individual who has such a depth of spirit and such a love for where he came from and for the downtrodden, and really used his position to advocate for a better life. There's a quote that he says, I am an African with two F's, if you please. So he never forgot where he came from. And Sancho was a great lover of the theater. In fact, he was obsessed with William Shakespeare. That was his great hero, Shakespeare. It's said that Sancho wished he could play Othello. Alas, he was a composer, he was a businessman, he was a letter writer, but he did not become a professional actor. This next song, The Complaint, comes from Shakespeare's Measure for Measure, and our narrator wishes that she would stop toying with him.
Take, oh, take those lips away. Take, oh, take those lips away. That so sweetly, sweetly were forsworn. And those eyes that break out, they lights that do mislead the moon. But thy kisses bring again seals of love, but sealed in vain. But thy kisses bring again seals of love, 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 but sealed in vain.
Oftentimes, when I perform pieces by Baroque or early classical period composers, I like to imagine what dance form they might be thinking of, even though it's a song. And this one, the one you just heard, feels like a chaconne to me, like a fabulous French Baroque chaconne, where you're just like bathing in the rhythm and the harmony, and it all is just so elegant as it moves forward. Such pageantry to the suffering. And now we have our final song by Sancho, written by the great thespian, the great Shakespearean actor of the time, David Garrick. And this is Sweetest Bard. And please listen carefully to the new sound of this keyboard with that more metallic harpsichord sounding effect that Patricia will employ. Sweetest Bard.
Sweetest bard that ever sung, nature's glory, fancy's child. Sweetest bard that ever sung, nature's glory, fancy's child. Never should it witching tongue, never should it witching tongue, never should it witching tongue wobble forth such wild. Warble forth such good notes wild. Warble forth such good notes wild. Come each muse and sister grace, loves and pleasures hither come. Come each muse and sister grace, loves and pleasures hither come. Well, you know this happy place. Well, you know this happy place. Well, you know this happy place. Avon's begs were once your home. Avon's begs were once your home. Avon's begs were once your home. Bring the laurels, bring the flowers, songs of triumph to him raise. Bring the laurels, bring the flowers, songs of triumph to him raise. He united all your powers, he united all your powers, he united all your powers, all uniting sing his praise, all uniting sing his praise, all uniting sing his praise.
I failed to mention that the bard in that song is Shakespeare himself. And Sancho shows us just how much he loves the sweetest bard that was William Shakespeare. What an example Charles Ignatius Sancho leaves for us. Someone born into such adversity who has some luck in life, but actually just has this special spark to be resilient, to make gold out of the crumbs that he was given, and to have, a really, excuse me, a truly exceptional worldview. This joy and optimism that you hear in the music. When you read his letters, you find that same individual represented therein. Truly remarkable person. Yeah.
Thank you. I just wanted to say bravo. And yes, the music truly warms your heart. It's like so special and so lovely, and yeah, just like makes you smile.
It does. It makes you smile because we need to smile. I need to smile these days. So, before I talk about our next wonderful musician or librettist, impresario, I should talk a little bit about my research with the Lisette Project. As Patricia announced in the beginning of this program, I am the music director of the Lisette Project, which is a collective of, we are performers, musicologists, poets, singers, pianists, or keyboardists. And I started the project as a way to study the history of the oldest song in Haitian Creole, Lisette quittait la plaine, which was written in 1757. But along the way, I found a whole bunch of other music from both colonial Saint-Domingue, which is early Haiti, modern early Haiti, and then into the contemporary time period. And one such figure is the man I'd like to talk about right now, Juste Chanlatte. If we could have that Chanlatte slide. That, unfortunately, no paintings were made of this very important character in Haitian history, but we do have his signature, as he was quite a great writer and prolific writer. Juste Chanlatte, who became Le Comte de Rosier, was born in 1766 in Saint-Domingue to an affluent, mixed-race, free family of color on the island. he moved to France at some point. He was educated in France, and then he returned to the island around the time that things were heating up towards the Haitian Revolution. The years of the Haitian Revolution, which was begun by Toussaint Louverture, started in 1791 and went all the way to 1804. Strangely, or not strangely, but interestingly, Juste Chanlatte spent quite a bit of the years of the revolution actually in the United States. He was in Baltimore at a certain point for the bulk of the fight. But he returns to the island in 1803, joins the forces of the then leader Jean-Jacques Dessalines, because Toussaint Louverture is murdered by the French in France in the middle of the war, and then the revolution is taken up by Jean-Jacques Dessalines. And Juste Chanlatte becomes a very close advisor of Dessalines. He is, in fact, the writer of the Declaration of Independence. When the war was ended in 1804, Juste Chanlatte drafted the Declaration of Independence and actually became the Secretary General of Dessalines' new government. So you're probably saying, why is Jean-Bernard giving this political history of Haiti? Well, because everyone should know the political history of Haiti, one. But also, we have this man who was a writer and used his words not only to pen political documents, but also plays and poems. The two pieces that I'm going to play for you today were rediscovered and identified by my friend Henry Stoll, who's a fellow at the University of Michigan, though he was at Harvard University at the time. And during his archival work in Haiti, Henry was actually the first to identify that people were aware of the texts. In the first piece we're going to play, people were aware of the texts, but they didn't realize that Chanlatte had written it. In the second piece, people had the text, then they knew Chanlatte had written it, but they didn't know what music was to be performed. And I should mention here that Chanlatte is a lyricist, and there was a great practice of song parody or parodie in Saint-Domingue, where Haitian musicians would repurpose already existing texts to write new songs, basically. And this was not unique to Saint-Domingue. You'll recall that the American national anthem, the Star-Spangled Banner, was written by Francis Scott Key. Francis Scott Key, while he might have been musical, is a lyricist who wrote the song who wrote the poem to the Anacreontic song, a pre-existing song. And what this tradition of parodie allows is that they can write music, they can quickly write words to music that people already know, one. They can take advantage of scores that are already written, right? So that instrumentalists already know the tune. And then three, there is also the resonance of text, right? Of writing a new text, the resonance of music, of writing a new text to already existing music that has a certain association and then has a new meaning. In fact, and Henry likes to say this, that what we learned from the Haitian Revolution is that early Haitians were the opposite of cancel culture. Instead of canceling things that they disagreed with, they adopted them and they rewrote them. And we see examples of this all over the place. On January 1st of every year, Haitians celebrate their Independence Day by drinking soup joumou, which is pumpkin soup. And we drink pumpkin soup on January 1st because that was a meal that the aristocrats would eat and that enslaved people didn't get to partake in. And after independence, instead of throwing away the pumpkin soup entirely as this bad memory of a time before independence, we adopted the soup and gave it to everyone as a celebration. And with Juste Chanlatte, I think we see this man taking the European music, like that pumpkin soup, and writing new words. And what he does here is he explicitly makes political statements about the importance of the Black person and of the humanity of the Black person. And this is the importance of Black humanism, as Marlene Doubt calls it, that evolved in the 18th century and early 19th century through the Haitian Revolution, where Black thinkers, politicians were engaging in the same conversations that Europeans, the French in particular, were having. People like Jean-Jacques Rousseau and Diderot and Voltaire about the rights of man, right? All forgetting that they were enslaving their fellow men, right, in the Caribbean and in other parts of the world. So with the Haitian Revolution, there is this clear desire to place the Black man with the Black human, right, person into the narrative of freedom. In fact, in the first Haitian constitution, it is written that all Haitian citizens are Black. And this is in reference, this is kind of a nod to the American Constitution. You'll recall that US citizenship is limited to white citizens, right? And of course, race is a construct. So the idea that, to be an American citizen, you have to be white. And there's this whole history of various ethnic groups in the United States suing to be considered white. Well, in Haiti, when they signed the new constitution, they said, well, all Haitians are Black, including the German and Polish soldiers who fought on our side. They are now Black because to be a Haitian citizen, you are Black. So this is kind of the same gesture that he's making. Now, what we're going to hear now is a recording it is a parody of the French national anthem, La Marseillaise, except now with words of the Haitian Revolution put to the melody. And Patricia is going to tell us a little bit about the keyboard that my dear friend Nicholas Matthew, forte pianist and historian from UC Berkeley, is playing with me in this recording. And Patricia will tell us about the keyboard.
Yeah, well, thank you for all this. It was making me think how this same keyboard that I'm going to introduce is doing something similar to the pumpkin soup, right? So these keyboards that were, especially at the very beginning of the history of a piano, only they belonged only to the aristocracy, or really like, maybe the first bourgeoisie, but like, rich people, basically, how they eventually become accessible to everyone, and how nowadays we are using them to tell a part of a history that hasn't been told. And especially it wasn't told on those instruments at the time, right? So yes, I love the pumpkin soup idea, really. It's like using what we have because it's already there. We don't need to discard it, but we can use it in a different way with a better outcome and more fair.
Absolutely.
So yeah, no, thank you for that. And so yes, so the piano is also part of the Cornell Center for Historical Keyboards. It's Jean's piano. It's a replica as well. So this replica in particular is made by Barbara Wolf. I forgot to mention the replica of the Zilberman was made. Has been made by. Oh my God. Okay, it'll come to me. Paul McNulty.
McNulty, that's right, McNulty.
So Barbara Wolf made this copy very specifically after an instrument that is at the Smithsonian Museum in Washington. And it's a beautiful, beautiful instrument. It's one of my favorites. I mean, all of them are my favorite, really. But this one has this little moderator handstop that you pull, and then it becomes this like magic sound that is wonderful to play everything. But if you can imagine something, the beginning of a moonlight. So, and it has knee levels, it has 5 octaves. It is an instrument after, as I said, as an original chant of around 1800. So it's a little later in relation to the one that we saw in the previous video. By the way, the chants would be a Viennese instrument, and the Silbermann was made in Saxony. And what happened there was that this Silbermann, who was an organ maker and harpsichord maker, probably got in contact with the first pianos made in Italy by Cristofori and then his student Ferrini, and copied basically exactly the whole mechanics. The only thing that was added by him was the damper. I was going to say pedal, but it's not a pedal because you action it with the hands as well, and the harpsichord sound that you heard. But other than that, it's an Italian piano, really, even though it was made in Saxony. And this one instead was made in Vienna. And as you probably know, Schanz was one of the many piano builders in Vienna, but one of the most famous ones, very acclaimed and very, very dear to Haydn, who would recommend everyone to buy one. It was quite funny. Like, there are so many letters of him really recommending the sound of a Schanz, saying things like, if you only had a chance to play my music, you could make this refined sound. So it is true that you can really play a lot with the sound on the Schanz. So I'm sure this is going to be the perfect instrument for this music, and I'm looking forward to hear it.
Right.
Toi tu t'es plein d'hygiène quand un héros par ses exploits, vengeant ton nom, brisant ta chaîne, à jamais assure tes droits, à jamais assure tes droits. Honneur à sa valeur guerrière, gloire à ses ifs triomphants. Offrons-lui nos cœurs, notre sang, chantons d'une voix malifière, sous ce beau Père uni, à jamais réunis. Vivons, mourons, ces vrais enfants, libres, indépendants.
Yeah. So very invigorating stuff. I've had the pleasure of performing that piece live in concert all over the United States. And that's usually the peak of the program when people are like, yeah, the French should stop being against liberty, right? The French that when we think about this time period, the Enlightenment era, we imagine that France is a leader of freedom, and in the case of Haiti, it is not. Now, the story of the Haitian Revolution is a complicated one. The war was won in 1804. And in fact, what you just heard comes from the diary of Jean-Jacques Dessalines. Dessalines, so the Jacques referred to in that song is Jean-Jacques Dessalines, and it comes from his diary. He is murdered 3 years later in 1807. There is a coup, and the island is split because Henri Christophe, who was part of the government in Port-au-Prince, takes over the north and founds a new country, the Kingdom of Haiti in the north. Juste Chanlatte, who's the librettist that we're talking about here, then transitions from the south to the north with Henri Christophe. Henri Christophe is famous for having built the Citadelle, which still is the largest fort. It still exists today and a big tourist site in Haiti. And he has a beautiful palace at the foot of the mountain called Sans Souci. And within this new court, they create a kingdom. And Juste Chanlatte serves as the secretary to Christophe, to Henri Christophe. And he writes for La Gazette du Cap, he writes for a newspaper in Cap Haitian, and he also pens a number of plays and operas, parody operas, actually. So he's really interested in inserting a new mythology, basically. He's like utilizing the theater to create a new mythology for Haiti and for the ideals of Haiti. And I really love this quote by Tabitha McIntosh and Gregory Pierrot from their article on called Henri Christophe Rebound, Juste Chanlatte, its lost play, Neri and the Afterlife of the Kingdom of Haiti. The authors write, both those texts were also objects, speaking about the actual objects of Chanlatte's writing, material books whose very physical existence and circulation constituted a radical challenge to the racial order of the old and new worlds. And that is exactly what he did. He wrote these operas in which characters are celebrating their blackness, are assuming that, like, it's not just like, oh, this person is in love and that person is in love. No, 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 no. It's like, here is a story about a black person and a black king that comes to be, and something that has to do with both the fact that there is a new kingdom and that this kingdom features free and noble black people with dignity. And he uses this operatic form to articulate this vision. What you're about to hear comes from his comic opera, L'entrée du roi en sa capitale, the entrance of the king into his capital. And in it, our narrator is singing the praises of Queen Marie, saying that to celebrate her, is it not to celebrate Henry for having chosen such a wonderful spouse? Again, creating sort of this mythology of the new kingdom. Many of you will recognize the tune. You'll recall that these are parody operas, so they include repurposed music. Normally, this would be sung by a bass, but here it is sung by a soprano. Write in the chat if you recognize this aria. Right. A little bit about the performers you just heard. Those are our fantastic collaborators of the Lisette Project, Michelle Kennedy, soprano, and you have, oh goodness, I shouldn't say names because my brain isn't working right now, but we have wonderful string players, all based in Philadelphia. And we are working on an album, actually, and the two excerpts you just heard are from an upcoming album, Lisette, A Song's Journey, that will probably appear at the end of this year. And those are two little snippets from that project. So we should move forward from the beginning of the 19th century and into the 20th century with Carmen Brouard. Carmen Brouard On Facebook last week, I invited my friends to come hear this talk if they wanted to know more about the Dean of Haitian Composers. While that's not a moniker normally attributed to Carmen Brouard, I think it accurately represents her importance, her expertise, and the depth of her compositional output. Brouard was born at the turn of the 20th century in 1906 in Port-au-Prince, Haiti, to an affluent intellectual family. Her father, Raphaël Brouard, was mayor of Port-au-Prince at some point, and her mother, Cléomine Gaëjean, was her first piano teacher. Carmen began playing at a very young age, and after studying with her mother at home, she became the pupil of the internationally acclaimed Haitian composer pianist Juste Chanlatte. The family moved to Paris when Brouard was still a child, and she continued her studies at the Conservatoire de Paris. Carmen would return to Haiti in the late 1920s, where she was hailed as the best pianist on the entire island, not just in Haiti. In fact, after her successful debut in the Dominican Republic, the then Dominican president, Rafael Trujillo, offered her a position at the conservatory in Santo Domingo. Brouard politely did not accept this offer and spent many years teaching and performing in Port-au-Prince as part of a circuit of Haitian classical musicians devoted to chamber music in particular. Carmen returned to Paris in the 1940s after World War II and did further studies with Marguerite Long, through whom she met Maurice Ravel, who was very impressed with her music. Later in her life, in 1970, she emigrated to Montreal, Canada, and became a citizen of Canada. So she's a Haitian-Canadian composer. She wrote dozens of works for the piano, works for string instruments in various chamber combinations. She has many songs and several works for orchestra, larger works for orchestra. So for those reasons, I really think that the depth of her output really puts her in a different level to other Haitian composers, and I really enjoy sharing her here. As I said, it's nice to think about early voices in Black music history with someone like Ignatius Sancho in the 18th century, and someone who's using music during the Haitian Revolution and in early Haiti, both early Haiti and early Kingdom of the North. But it's nice to also see somebody in the 20th century where our compositional voice has really developed fully. As a student of Juste Chanlatte, despite her studies in Paris, we come to understand that Carmen Brouard is a Haitian artist interested in what those Haitian artists were deeply interested in at the time that she began studying, which was, there were two movements. One, indigénisme, which is indigenism, we would translate to indigenism, and the other is noirisme, or négritude, which is like the Black Power movement of the Francophone world. There was this movement within Haitian intellectual society to find narratives, historical narratives, other than those from Europe, to embrace the African roots, and also the indigenous Taino roots of the island and of West Africa, and to explore what those facets of our identity contribute to our culture. And Juste Chanlatte was particularly into the indigenist movement, which really embraced both ancient Egypt and also Taino mythology. Whereas you have people like Ludovic Lamotte, who's more interested in négritude, and they are more into voodoo and voodoo rhythms and all. And Carmen Brouard embraces both, and we hear both in her work. The pieces that we're going to play today, we have a nocturne and then two songs. And the nocturne, I think, really taps into both the more European sounding aspect of her work as someone who was trained in Paris, but also I hear a little bit of Juste Chanlatte in the sound of her. If you listen to Juste Chanlatte's piano music, his Chant de la Montagne, for example, you hear this pentatonic quality, this pentatonic melody, or pentatonic-like melody that isn't quite like an African Haitian folk song. This sounds more like the indigenous aspect of her her influences here. And it's played by my dear friend Vina Kulkarni-Rankin on a beautiful Steinway Grand at the Philadelphia Chamber Music Society last year. And this is Nocturne Number 1 by Carmen Brouard. Yeah. Thank you to Vina Kulkarni Rankin for allowing me to showcase her work here this afternoon. She and I are part of a group called Cuento Music, which means Cuento means stories in Filipino Tagalog, and music is music in Haitian Creole. And we are a crossover music project that is interested in both classical and folk music from around the world. And that is from a program that features a lot of Haitian music. Carmen Brouard, what a wonderful writer for the piano. Now, in order for us to get into the songs that you're about to hear, we need to understand a little bit about Haitian music, about Vodou Haitian music, and the obsession of Haitian composers of particularly the 20th century, to reimagine the drum for the concert stage. The Haitian composer Franz Cassius, who wrote for guitar and voice, there's a famous quote of his that says, "In Haitian music, you have the voice and you have the drums." And the job of a classical musician in trying to interpret that is constantly trying to reimagine those drums, no matter what instrument you're actually playing, be it a guitar or a piano. And in order for us to get into the drums, we should talk a little bit about a very important Haitian rhythm, which is the cantolet. And Sarah, could I have that cantolet? And it's also called the cinquillo. The cinquillo rhythm, ta 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 ta, long, short, long, short, long, long, short, long, short, long. It is a 5-note figure that in the early part of the 20th century, sometimes composers would actually write it as a 5, with the assumption that you would know that it's not supposed to be an equal 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but a long, short, long, short, long. Sometimes it's swung into ta ta ta, short, long, short, long, short, short, long, short, long, short, or there are many Haitian rhythms and rites in Vodou that has some variation of this 5-note figure. We hear it in the merengue, which is not Vodou, but is Haitian music nonetheless. And then you also hear it in the raboudai and the congo. Now, the songs that you're about to hear, now that I've explained and identified this rhythm and also this obsession with reimagining the drum, you can get into the brilliance of what she has composed. Carmen Brouard's brother, Jacques Brouard, was part of the indigenist movement, this indigenous movement, and he forsook his middle-class life and actually spent a lot of time in the streets, and also forsake Catholicism in his early life and really embraced Vodou. Unfortunately, he developed quite a habit of alcoholism. So later on in his life, he converts to Catholicism and tries to get away from the alcohol. And the 2 songs you're about to hear are 2 poems of his in which he is struggling to remain faithful to Catholicism, to the teachings of the church. And Carmen seems to interpret that internal struggle as also a struggle between these 2 musical traditions. And sometimes the transitions are jarring. I find that her musical language, in fact, often I hear it even in the nocturne. There are turns, harmonic turns, and almost like there are turns in the music that you don't expect, where she's just going from one thing to another, like very quickly moving from one thing to another. And I think it's intentional on her part. So you're going to hear beautiful 4-part harmony writing juxtaposed with this incessant beating of the drum, particularly in the left hand of the piano. Please enjoy these 2 songs by Carmen Brouard.
Donne je serai mort, enterrez-moi humblement à la croix des martyrs. Puisque là j'aurais vécu mes pleurs, mes rires, bref, ma vie, saisis-moi. C'est un trop paisible et délicieux qui raille le bidon vaniteux, sera tout à mes désirs calmes et à mon âme. Elle fermée, paupières closes, mes amours veilleront sur ma tombe pour toujours. Frangipanier, aiguille, neige retour. Quelques nébiers fleuriront. Dans la petite chapelle pieuse où la parole se fait silencieuse, tous ceux qui m'auront connu, viendront prier sur ma tombe. Que belle sera l'harmonie de ces lestes fleurs. Quand je serai mort, enterrez-moi humblement à la croix des martyrs.
Great. I would be remiss not to make a final plug for the Société de recherche et de diffusion de la musique classique haïtienne, which is the Society for the Research and Diffusion of Haitian Classical Music, based in Montreal, Canada. They are curated by Claude Dauphin, and the scores that we were reading from, both for the nocturne and the songs, were edited and prepared by the American vocalist and editor Robert Grenier, and he has a number of scores for a number of Haitian composers available through the society in Montreal. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Jean-Bernard, for such a rich program. I'm really inspired by hearing the histories, the beautiful performances that you sang with Patricia, the ones that you shared of your colleagues about Ignatius Sancho, Carmen Brouard, and Juste Chanlatte. It's really very very motivational for all of us, I think, in many levels, in our current struggles in our time, to go into how the human spirit is really unstoppable, and hearing about it. And that leads me to a question we have from our audience. Steve Yeager says, why does so much music come from struggle? So that's a wonderful question. Thank you. If Jean or Patricia, you want to speak to that, a question from our audience?
Patricia, what do you think?
That's a very good question. I think because music really provides solace to our souls, and I think, like, I mean, whether we play it or we listen to it or we write it or we improvise it, I think it still makes the same effect. That it's kind of like really, I don't know, it fulfills you in a way, and that nothing else can. I think there's something very inherent in our human side, or best part of a human side, where it just connects to our interior. And I think it's like a form of relief, of expression, of freedom, actually, to say many things that you cannot say with words.
Yeah.
For different reasons.
Yeah, I agree. I think there definitely is that solace aspect, but then also art reflects life, right? Everything in life is reflected in art. And we can ask, well, why do pieces that are from struggle, why do they resonate more? I think they resonate more, one, because of solace, but also because of change, right? Art is powerful in getting people to change. And I think when things happen to us, we articulate that through our art, and other people who can relate to what we're talking about, they too keep those pieces alive.
Yeah. Speaking about the pumpkin soup the story you shared about, we coined backstage here between those of us in the salon, the pumpkin soup performance practice approach of putting your own story onto classics like Juste Chanlatte did for the Magic Flute aria we heard. Is that correct?
That's exactly it.
and I can go on and on about how that just inspires me and where I've come from and why I'm doing classical music. Exactly the same kind of inspiration there. So what a wonderful story from history. We have a wonderful question from Victoria McManus. She says, she asked, what are some challenges? Hello, I guess you know each other. Great. What are some challenges of archival research you've all encountered, and in editing archival manuscripts into something that can be performed more broadly?
Yeah, that is such a great question. So many challenges. As an educator, I love the project that I have and bringing students in, because I think it's such a rich experience. Bringing somebody, it really employs a different level of critical thinking and research than just learning songs that where someone has already done this labor. We think that, Beethoven and Schumann and Schubert, who are like highly edited composers, that it kind of arrived at us from the hand of said composer in the form that we read them in our studios, except that I find that exploring Haitian music, exploring even something like Ignatius Sancho's music, where you're reading from a score that often is kind of illegible, or there might be mistakes, obvious mistakes, just based on context clues. You, as a musician, have a lot more work to do to make it work. My friend Nicholas Matthew, collaborating in the Lisette Project, has the image. He says, sometimes reading music is more like reading hieroglyphics than it is reading something that's more literal. And hieroglyphic in the sense that you need to tell yourself that this is a full story and that it actually works. And that your job is to like an archaeologist who somehow is going to tell you a whole beautiful story based on a painting they saw on a wall that is compelling to you who may not be able to read that story. We are able to create a full performance. And that's what the early music movement has taught us generally, that it's half artistic practice, half research-based practice. And with the Lisette Project, there's been quite a bit of, I found out about a song literally from a history book. And then it said it's written to this tune. So then I went to my friend Richard Stone and said, hey, I think these go together, but he made the engraving, and then we did the performance. And then we had to decide how we're going to do each verse. Henry Stoll gave me the verses of the Marseillaise, the words. And we took the melody, we took the music, and then created an arrangement for that. But even the modern things, Robert Grenier, who edited a lot of Carmen Brouard's music, has a lot of questions that he had to answer in creating those scores. So that is the equity issue that comes up, that not only is this music unheard, but it's also unedited. So it takes quite a lot of labor. Whenever I bring a Haitian score to a new collaborator, there's like this moment where we're like, ooh, I wish this were written a little better, because the edition may not be your Hal Leonard edition, because I got it out of an archive somewhere. So those are some aspects that come up.
Yeah, thank you for explaining your experience and process in bringing these songs to life. It is a lot of work and as much research as performance.
Oh,
Based.
I should say one thing. There's another thing in doing archival work, particularly with 18th century music with Black narratives, is that you will encounter things that you don't want to perform, that shouldn't be performed again, right? That even if you, as a scientist, as a historian, want all knowledge to exist, and you're not in it. It's not that I want to destroy things, and certainly things can be written about, but with the Lisette Project, we occupy this special place in between research and performance, right? And it's one thing to be committed to research, and another thing to bring to life something that is hurtful to a modern audience and doesn't need to be performed as entertainment any longer. And then things that are kind of in between, which you can perform, but then just need to contextualize quite intentionally so that it's understood properly.
Well, speaking of the Lisette Project, tell us again what's coming up for you and this project and your other wonderful thing, research, before we conclude today.
Absolutely. Most recently, we are collaborating with the Fitzwilliam Museum in England. They are actually playing the Dans le Cœur de Marie that you heard, half of which you heard today, as part of an exhibit called Rise Up on the History of Revolution in the Caribbean. And it will be there. Audiences can listen to Michelle's gorgeous voice while looking at paintings from that time period. And then we have an upcoming album in which we will record a lot. We've already recorded a lot of this music. And finally, I'm working on an anthology to print this music as well. So,
oh, wonderful. Wonderful.
Approach.
we will do our best to stay in touch with you and make sure we let everyone know when these wonderful things come out. That sounds well. Thank you so much, Jean-Bernard. It was really an honor to have you with us. Thank you, Patricia, for your beautiful playing and for speaking with Jean-Bernard as well. Both of you from Ithaca. It's been such a pleasure to visit with you and to learn. And for those of you catching the end or the middle, you can always view the salon again and go back and refer to what we've talked about today in our Salon 3 Black Voices in Fortepiano history. Just a reminder that on March 9th, we'll have Karine Cléard Rondon, a Baroque violinist based in Montreal, who is the president of Early Music America's board, and we'll be talking about the role of the fortepiano and in music in Latin America and female composers in Latin America. So from New York City, I'm Yiheng Yang, Patricia Garcia-Gill, and Jean-Bernard Cerin. Thank you for being with us today for the salon, and please come back. Thanks to the Catskill Mountain Foundation for supporting all this wonderful programming. Be well Goodbye.
Right. Thank you.
Bye.